I done tussle with a whale. I done handcuff lightning, throw thunder in jail. That's bad. I know you got him picked, but the man's in trouble. I'm gonna show you how great I am.
I'm the most brutal and vicious and most ruthless champion there's ever been. There's no one can stop me.
I don't want that person to come out, because if he comes out, hell is coming with him.
Day to the Busted Lip Podcast. What's up, everybody? I am Mark Pavelich, and away in the rock, the one and only T.J. Harstine, and welcome to Throwdown Thursdays. Woo! Come on now.
We're back. We're back. We're rolling. You know, we had a little.
Small hiatus. I call it not a paternity, but it's a kind of like a thing. It's a dad thing. I don't know the real name of it all, but it was a slight delay because, as some of you might know, that TJ has another child. And
I do.
we have Bon Harstine now part of the family, and now we have there's a foursome. So if they need to book a tea time, they're all set.
It's all, you know what? And we're still in man-to-man defense. We haven't moved to zone, so we're doing good. You know, I think it's funny. Like we talked about being a dad a million times and all that sort of stuff, and it's like. Sure. It's all pretty easy at the beginning because the kids don't do anything. Like the newborn phase, as they call it, is just sleeping and pooping and repeating, you know, that process over and over. I guess they have to eat too, but you know, it's like, it's so easy. But we have like a 2.5-year-old, and then that's the whole thing. Honestly, it's a bit of a breeze if I'm totally honest. So, you know, sorry if anybody else doesn't feel that way, but that's just the way it is.
I'm sure people do not feel that way.
I don't think they do, but
well, you know, the Father's Day just passed, and now we have, which nobody's talking about. So the Busted Lip Podcast will talk about this,
yes,
because nobody's talking about it. It's Men's Mental Health Month, and people have not. You don't see no parades, you don't see no one cheering it around. Nobody's letterhead it's on. Nobody's talking about it. And you know, we were talking about it earlier today because we thought it would be a perfect time to actually like bring it up and talk about it a little bit, just for the sole purpose of nobody's talking about it. Yeah. And literally 14 men every 14 minutes, a man kills himself. Yeah, kills himself.
Yeah.
So this is something that's not going away. And it's just magnifying with the nonsense in the world that I see. And it's a real thing, and we have to talk about it today.
Yeah, we do. You know what's funny? We were talking about Father's Day. You and I are both fathers, and very proud fathers, and it's great. And that day, to me, it's so funny. You grow up, and your birthday is always the best day of the year. You know what I mean?
That's right.
It's your birthday and Christmas. Those are the two that matter to you the most. And all of a sudden, you become a dad, or a mom, whatever. But you become a dad, and Father's Day is now, to me, the most important and special day of the year, hands down. Like it's such, you know, my anniversary, of course, it's different too, but Father's Day is so special because I feel like it's the one holiday, the one day that's recognizing effort that men put in. You know, and I mean, I'm sure there's somebody that'll pipe up, oh, what about all the other, I'm sure somebody's got something to say. But Father's Day is uniquely directed, of course, toward men that have children that are trying to do a good thing and trying to do it well. But as I walked around on Father's Day, and I didn't need anybody to wish me a happy Father's Day, it was whatever. But there's very little emphasis put on Father's Day.
Yeah,
very little.
It's crazy.
Interesting fact.
Yeah.
Mother's Day started in 1911, I want to say it was the first time that it was celebrated in the U.S., something like that. That same year, in the same town, they put on a Father's Day thing to say,
like what, a breakfast or something?
We're going to pair on to the Mother's Day thing because that's a cool idea. We'll do it for fathers too, right?
Sure.
Mother's Day was recognized basically from that day forward. Now, I love Mother's Day, by the way. I think it's amazing, and I celebrate it to the nines. I think it's awesome. But Father's Day didn't become recognized until 1973. 60 years later.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, see, that to me is just mind-boggling. Like,
yeah. What's the difference? Why is it different? Now, Now, you want to say that moms do more or women do more or whatever, you can make that argument if you want. The average mother does more time with the children than the average father and all this kind of stuff. That's not really relevant. You can say that this dad maybe doesn't do as much as this mom, but for the dads out there that are putting in the time, not only to raise their children, but to go to work and work hard and make sure their kids and the mother and everybody else is able to enjoy a certain type of life, they deserve just as much of that praise as anybody else.
I totally agree. And that's a topic that people you don't see that anymore in the world. So I came up in an era where my mother stayed home and my father went out and worked. And I duplicated that for my life. I went out and worked. Minot worked at home and took care of that.
Yeah.
But people were like, I don't know how you guys do that. Like, what's wrong with you, And my wife's like, listen, my number one priority will always be, and this is something you can't say out loud either anymore because people go, what? My wife said, quote unquote, my family's my number one priority and my only priority. I don't give a shit about nothing else. So my wife was very clear on that. So, but people are like, well, Minot, don't you want to do this or do that? She goes, no. This is my family. I cherish them. I want them everybody to get along. It's my job to make sure if things fall apart, I put them back together. Women around the world are kind of looking like, what's wrong? Like, why would she do that? Right. And I'm like, because in this day and age, that 90% of households, both people work.
Yeah.
I bet you it's higher than that. I bet you it's higher than 90%.
Depends on the area probably. But in the areas that we live in. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, but I was really focused on, I didn't want my kids to go to daycare. I didn't want my kids being raised by someone else. That's what I wanted. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I'm just saying that's how I seen it. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to double down on who I am and I'm going to go work my balls off and I'm going to make sure that I provide for my family. Now, you can do an interview with my daughter and my son and they'll probably tell you a time or two that dad wasn't there.
Yeah.
And let me explain this to the men at home. Zero regret, zero resentment, zero like, oh, I should have been there. Zero. Listen, when you put your mindset to take care of your family, okay, and you were out in the world of, going after it, I didn't have time to feel guilt of not showing up to a recital or to a hockey game. I tried to make it as much as possible. My children can testify to that, but there was times when it just wasn't possible. And the reality of that is that I wanted my children to have everything in life, including me present. But they did have to understand, dad's in Los Angeles, dad's in wherever, he's somewhere else. And my wife was the one that not smoothed it over, but she was the one that made it clear to the children why that was important. Instead of, in today's day and age, you might have the woman going, oh, the man should be at home, helping me with this and blah, blah, blah. And I'm not saying the people are wrong, but I am saying is my formula worked very well. And I'm telling, it's hard for people to understand that. But once again, like I said, we're talking about men's mental health, right? So I love the idea that I was put in that position.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I think that the thing that's important for everybody to understand is that whatever the decisions are made within the family, it should be with the best interests of the children first and the family as a whole, because it's going to be different from each person's perspective, because some people aren't able to do the whole single income thing. That's, these days it's less and less common to be able to pull it off, and that's fine. Yeah. So then you have that conversation and you talk about how you can balance that together with the proper support. And this is where that word to me is the most important word in any relationship, and it's support. Support and respect. People talk about love, but love is very easily interpreted in different ways. You can interpret that differently. Respect means one thing and support means one thing. You can't distinguish that in any other way. You can't dissect that in any other way. Love, you can pull it apart in 1,000 different ways. So you say, oh, I love the person. That's what they get from me. And it's like, well, what the fuck does that mean?
Correct.
But respect.
What happens then, TJ, though? Why do we look at it that way? Because when you see things going all great, okay, things are going great, that's when the love is just real shiny.
Sure.
But then all of a sudden that shit hits the fan, and that's where we have these huge divorce rates, because people don't understand what it's like. When we hear the word grind and we hear the word, I love this one. What's the one they always say? That's the ride or die and all this other bullshit.
I mean, right.
You know what? People don't understand the real term of what we're talking about here, because that is when it's bad.
Well, if you fall
not when it's good,
it's bad, that means you lacked support and respect. You might have had some sort of love, but somewhere support and respect were lost. Usually the support's not there to begin with, and you'd say it is, but it's not. And then the respect falls apart when things are bad, because you start to blame the other person, and then you start acting out against them because you resent them. Now, if you actually respect the person and you're willing to support each other during a tough time, you'll find that the love grows even more intensely when things are bad, not the other way around.
Exactly.
It doesn't get worse because you start saying, hey, listen, I got you. And that's really, I think, one of the things that people don't understand that men need. It's support and respect, period. That's it.
Correct.
Really,
that's it, man. It's not that complex, everybody.
No, it's
so
not.
We want to talk about men's mental health today. The crazy part about it is that's all men are looking for. Men are looking for the respect. They're looking for the praise from their significant other.
Oh man, doesn't it ever feel good too when you get it? It's the best thing.
Correct.
In the world.
And that's the only one you start caring about after a while.
Yeah.
After a while you don't care about nobody else. You just you want to hear it from them. And there's something so empowering about that when I can remember 100 different scenarios that happening, and I was like, wow, that was what really got me lifted up. That's the thing that got me boosted.
Yeah.
And it was because I married the right person that understood that. Now you might have the other one that goes, oh, I can't believe you're doing that, and I can't believe you're doing this, and I can't believe you're doing that, and this is where we start having that problem, and that problem that becomes a large problem, and then the resentment starts to creep in. And when the resentment starts to creep in, that's when you got to really fix that quick, or that's going to be a gigantic problem.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's to try to stay on the men's mental health side of things, I guess. The problem that men deal with is that when they have struggle, they fear exposing it because they don't want to be seen as weak. What's interesting is that's been talked about, that's been named toxic, right? That whole be strong, get up after you fall down, don't cry, all that stuff. All of those things have been called toxic. So the behaviors of that we have been trained are toxic. But the reality is that when you do come out and say those things, people come back instead of saying, listen, Mark, let's talk. You're having a hard time. Hey, I got you. No worries. Yeah. No. The same people that are calling masculinity toxic and those behaviors that made you hide things until it got to a point where you couldn't handle it anymore, those same people, they'll also come back and say, what are you complaining about? You're a man. You don't have it bad. You got it easy. You're a man. Right. And it's like, okay, well, now my feelings aren't valid anyways. Why would I speak out? Or if you're with somebody that doesn't respect and support you, you bring something up and then they go, what are you worried about? This, or you shouldn't have done that in the first place, or I can't believe you're doing this or whatever. I think that the bottom line is if somebody doesn't feel supported to talk about what they need to talk about, they're never going to do it. And what happens is you just continue to get down this sort of black hole of depression and anxiety. And then that just keeps sort of compounding on itself. But I remember...
Do we not believe in this though still? I have this coin that I carry with me everywhere I go. And there's a statement in it that's probably not that cool for people that struggle with mental illness, because it's a coin that I carry. It's a really cool coin. And it says, be watchful, stand firm in faith, act like men, be strong. Now, I'm not saying not to act like a man. I'm not saying don't be strong. I'm saying that that's for me. So I keep this coin on me at all times because it's something that reminds me of, like, yes, I am the provider. I am the guy that needs to be strong in this. I have a strong wife as well, but it's like I have to be that person, like, and be genuinely that human being, not just in theory, not just saying the words of doing that. Something I practice on a constant basis is this. And it's something that I've always kind of like thought, like, no, when we talk with Michael Landsberg, who's awesome for mental illness, he says sick, not weak. And I agree with it to a certain extent, but I do say there is a point where you have to work on your depression. You have to work on your anxiety. If you just sit inside of that, I believe it's weak. Meaning weak is not weak in the term of weak. I mean the term of like you're being weak, not dealing with it. Deal with it. Like, figure out your anxiety, figure out your depression, figure out whatever you need to do with it. And listen, there's a lot of mental illness stuff that I used to say don't take medication for, but I do believe people with severe depression do need to take medication.
We need a little bit of an assistance. Yeah, I think what
Correct.
you said, be strong, right? And I think that's where, again, we talk about toxic masculinity and stuff like that. That sort of idea of being a strong man was called toxic, right?
Yeah.
The problem is that people really misinterpret what it means to be strong. Being strong doesn't
Correct.
mean pretending that you're okay. Being strong
That's right.
means admitting that you're not and moving forward at the same time.
Correct.
That's what being strong is. Being strong is saying, like, you know what, man, like I have some things that I got to deal with, but I'm going to deal with them, and I'm going to continue to move forward, and I'm not going to let those things hold me back. I'm going to make sure that I'm doing the right things to make sure that I can continue to provide for my family, or whatever it is that you need to do, whatever your role is. And your role doesn't have to be the same as every other man to be a strong man. I mean, you're being strong just means that you're able to handle your own issues. And
see, so we're bringing that back then, TJ. We're bringing that back about being strong is not toxic masculinity. It's literally something to remind guys, men, that like if you're suffering from this, get help. Go talk to people.
That's strength.
That's strength in itself, right there. To get it back. It's literally like I deal with my 91-year-old father all the time. He suffers from brutal anxiety, brutal. Like, I mean, it's been his whole entire life.
Yeah.
Just recently, we had a breakthrough at 91 years old. He calls me multiple times a day, and I told him, I said, listen, Dad, what you're missing is you're missing something so important here. Your anxiety has been stemmed from something catastrophic that happened in his life that he witnessed. And how that was broken down to him when we were on the phone talking, it's changed his mind after 91 years. He saw it when he was 5 years old. Okay?
Yeah.
He saw his father commit suicide.
Yeah.
So that's the facts of life, everybody. So he saw it. And my dad has had that in his brain for all these years. What I tried to explain to him was what his father did at that time was heroic. It wasn't suicide. And how I explained it was he was in a mining accident, and the shock that went off made him blind. So you're talking in the 20s and 30s here. There's no braille. There's no job for him to get. So the father's mentality was, I'm going to go do this because I'm not going to be another mouth to feed. I'm not good to anybody. I can't provide. See the mentality? I can't provide.
Well, especially then, because your role really was only as a provider.
Only to provide.
Yeah.
So so he took his life. But at the same time as I was talking to my father, making sense of it all to say, hey, it was kind of heroic what he did. It's not like he killed himself when, he killed himself because he couldn't see. He couldn't provide.
Yeah.
Back in that era, that was a horrible time. You know what I mean? Like he couldn't do anything. No. So that's how he looked at it. And my dad kind of switched his brain to that and started to realize, yeah, you know what? I might have saw that, but don't look at it as like the worst thing in the world that happened. Like it was horrible. It was catastrophic. But at the same time put a different perspective in your brain about what your father did. And all of a sudden my dad did that. And for the last 2 weeks now, there's no, when we're talking on the phone, he's very calm. He's doing things differently. And what I'm saying is, I'm not saying that's the solution to everybody's problem. I'm just giving you an example about what people are dealing with. My dad's had PTSD his whole entire life and didn't even know what it was.
Of course. Well, it wasn't really a thing up until recently. And I think, other than for veterans, right? I mean, veterans had it and that's it.
Right.
You didn't get blown up. You didn't have PTSD. But the reality is that a lot of people get PTSD from many different things, and it's all relative to your own life. I mean,
exactly.
If you've been through war and that stuff, well, then of course, then you're going to have PTSD based on those experiences. But if you've had otherwise a charmed life, but there's something that's been very affecting to you, then you might have PTSD from that. And that's why your feelings are valid. But what you have to do is you have to find a way to work through them in the way that's best for your life and for the ones that are around you that you love. And, I had my own experience with it in a sense recently. obviously I have 2 little kids, as we just talked about. One of them's in preschool, right? Now, I think the strength part, I'm not trying to pat myself on the back and say I'm Mr. Strong or anything like that, but the strength part is trying to look at the problem that you have and see what reactions it's causing and try to dissect that reaction in a way that allows you to change it for the better for not only yourself, but for those that it's going to affect as well. And that's where I think the strength part comes in as a man, as a person, but as a man, especially if you want to look at it that way, you have to be willing to be vulnerable and accept that you have that issue and then go after it. So I had this little issue in a sense where my daughter was going to preschool, right? She's 2.5 years old. We talked about this a bunch, but 2.5 years old. She had a teacher change at her preschool. And the teacher that came in, and they have 3 teachers per 12 students, right? So there's a lot of people there. It's a very, very nice school, and they've got a lot of staff on hands to take care of your kids. So your kids are quite safe. There's also cameras there that I can watch 24/7. I have a lot of trust issues, which you'll probably about to find out why. So anyways, the teacher change happened, and the teacher that came in was male, right? So they send out an email to all of the parents saying, hey, this new teacher's coming in. He's male. I understand some of you might have issues with this. Just so you know, there's some processes in place to make sure that the kids are safe. You know, they're not going to be in the washrooms, no diaper changing and stuff like that. Now, a lot of people have a lot of opinions on that. They think that that's silly that they have restrictions. Some people think they shouldn't be here, whatever the case. There's a whole bunch of different things. Now, myself, I was assaulted as a child from a male that was obviously fully grown male, whatever the case. So I was assaulted. Now, that didn't really, in a weird way, that instance, I didn't realize it bothered me for years and years because I had a lot of very traumatic things that happened to me during my childhood. So it was just another one thrown in the mix. So to me,
it was another, correct.
Whatever, right? It was some other shit. Yeah. Now I had kids, and then I went through, the person that assaulted me is now in jail, and we went through that process during Bowie being born, my first. While she was born, I had this experience going to court, putting this guy into prison and all that sort of stuff for what he did to me. What that caused, though, is for me to dive into sexual assault to kids, right? It's not a topic anybody wants to listen about because it's so terrible.
Or talk about.
Nobody wants to talk about it because it's just so icky. It's just awful, right? But it's a thing that happens very frequently. So I dove into the statistics on this as deep as a person can dive. I sat through an entire trial. I listened to lawyers talk about precedents and all the other cases that happened. What I realized is this stuff happens way more than we realize, right?
Oh, for sure it does.
And 95% of the time, let's say, it's a man. It's very rarely a woman. And now you could say that women aren't reported on as frequently and all that sort of stuff. But realistically, the statistics are pretty clear. Men perpetrate these things far more than women do, right? Now, here's the other thing. This is a preschool. My daughter's 2.5 years old. This means that the kids need their diapers changed, right? They need a lot of assistance. They need their butts wiped. They need to have all these different things, right? So now you put a man into that situation, and automatically that's what they're doing, right? They're supporting these kids with their hygiene and stuff like that. So I see that email and I think, okay, now a guy is going to be in the room with my daughter while she's getting her diaper changed, all that kind of stuff. Not very many men do this job. Very, very few, right? I asked people what they thought. What's the chance? What are the amount more likely that a man is going to assault a child than a woman, right? Most people say, I don't know, 10 times, 3 times, 20 times, whatever.
Yeah,
right?
No one knows.
It's 571 times more likely, just to give you an idea. Okay? Crazy, right? Now, I'm not saying, look, I'm a guy, I've got 2 kids. You're a man, you got 2 kids. I trust you with my kids' lives. I always would. But that doesn't mean that I need to trust anybody else, right? It doesn't need that I need to put my kid at that risk. I
agree with you. Yeah.
So long story short, I get that email. I have a full-blown meltdown, and I don't have these kinds of things very often. I've done a pretty good job of keeping my shit together in my life. You and I talked immediately after I got that email, right?
Correct.
That was the most stressed out I think I've ever been in my life. I was flying off the deep end, right? I go to email this school. I called them. I was going to go in to talk to them. I was losing my mind. I was going to go in and throw people around and I was crazy. I was going fucking nuts, man. Like I was going nuts.
Yeah, you were going nuts. Yeah.
And then I sat back and I realized, well, hold on a second. This reaction that I'm going to have isn't only going to affect me. It's going to affect my daughter, who is thriving at this school, who's doing an amazing job. She's growing and progressing at an amazing rate. She's happy. She loves going there. If I go and do this, she's not going to be there anymore. My second reaction was I'm going to pull her out of the school because she shouldn't be around these guys.
Yep.
That's not going to help her. She's at a great school. It's very safe. I've got cameras 24/7, you know, all this kind of stuff. So I had to sit back for a day and really think about what I was going to do. And then I had to react, and I went and had a meeting with them and all these different things. Now my daughter's very safe. I feel very good about the situation. But what happened is, by going through and doing that and dealing with it and sitting there and talking to my, you know, my best friend who's always there for me, my wife who's always there for me, to sit and think like, okay, I'm going to be vulnerable for a second and tell you guys this is the shit that's going on. I just need to talk
can we
about
change that word today? Can we change that word, TJ? That's the word that men are struggling with when you say the word vulnerable.
Yeah. I'm going to be open to you.
No, what about the courage? Because I believe it's that. Okay,
Yeah.
I do. I swear to God, when you were talking to me, I never thought you were vulnerable. I never thought that for 1 second. I thought it took courage to come and call me and to talk about that. I never once, we got to stop that word, because that's the problem with men. We hate that word vulnerable. We do. We despise it. It gives us like this kind of ick feeling of like, I'm not vulnerable. No, you're not. It took courage for you to do that, TJ.
Yeah.
That's real raw courage to go, wait a second. I got to deal with this shit, and I got to figure it out, and I gotta address it, right? And that's exactly what you did. I am going to take the word vulnerability out of the mental health stuff that I talk about moving forward, because I believe it's straight courage. Like, to really do that is like, that's the highest level of courage I see.
Well, you know, and it's funny because I talked about this a lot during the whole stuff that I was going through back, you know, when I was the last year, the year before, whatever the case. And now talking about it now, I started to realize, and I agree, vulnerability is what scares people from being vulnerable, if that makes sense. It scares them away because they don't want to be vulnerable. But you and I know this. If you're in a fight and you want to win, and you have to do something that's going to expose you to an attack in order to get the result that you want, right?
Sure.
Nobody knocks anybody out by shelling up the whole fight, right?
No.
What do you have to do in order to get that knockout? You have to become vulnerable. And you have to find a way to do that and remain strong.
Yes.
So you can't be strong if you're not vulnerable. It doesn't work. Yeah. It's just the way. Now, I agree that the word vulnerable scares people away. But I think that courage is only existing beside vulnerability. Because without being vulnerable, it's like people saying, look, I'm peaceful. But if you're not dangerous, you can't be peaceful.
I agree 100% with that. So I do.
They go hand in hand. Yeah. And so if you really want to be strong.
It's weird, though, how it does. It really does.
It does. Yeah. You can't have good without bad. You can't have strength without vulnerability. It just doesn't exist. They exist side by side. What really defines strength is accepting the fact that you have to become vulnerable for a moment and then overcome it. So if I'm sitting there in my, you know, if there's a bus coming, and I hate using this analogy because it was something that was said to me when I was a kid a million times by people that I know were lying. But if a bus was coming and my daughter had stepped out onto the road, me jumping in front of that bus to push her out of the way is making myself vulnerable and accepting that vulnerability. If I didn't do that, or if there was no bus, is pulling her off the street that heroic? If it's an empty road, it's not. No. I didn't do anything. I'm not that strong, right?
That's right.
What strength is accepting the fact that you could get hurt and doing it anyway. That's what strength is. And I think that's where people make the mistake, where they think, if I show vulnerability, I show weakness. That's so incorrect. Showing vulnerability shows your strength, as long as you're dealing with it in the right way.
That does. Yeah,
and
that's true.
The moral of my whole story was, by working through all of that shit that I did over those 2 days and having the meeting with those people and sitting down with the guy that's the new teacher and doing all these things, I was able to get to a place mentally that I was never going to be at if I walked in there and said, fuck you guys, I'm pulling my kid out. You're an idiot. Why would you do this, right?
Yeah.
So I had to deal with my shit in order for my kid to have a better future.
Correct.
And that's what you have to do all the time. And I think that, speaking of Father's Day, speaking of Men's Mental Health Month, if you don't do that stuff, it's going to trickle down to your children, and it's going to affect their life. And if you don't have kids, it's going to get into your relationship, and it'll cause a poison.
100% it will.
It just will, right?
Do you know we look at the statistics of divorce now in Canada, and we look at the statistics of all this stuff, and as you and I both know, all of the people that you knew when we used to have coffee with, they're all divorced now. Every one of them's divorced. When you were here, none of them were. They were all married. Now they're all divorced.
Yeah.
And you think probably, TJ, that most of those divorces could have been avoided if they would have the men would have dealt, or the females would have dealt with the issues they were dealing with.
I think some of them for sure.
Yeah.
I think there's all these interesting things about relationships that I don't think people address. And I think that one of them, first of all, is that people do jump into relationships that aren't necessarily that beneficial for them in the first place. And they just kind of make that decision. It is what it is. It happens. I'm not going to sit here and tell people that are divorced that they failed. I would be quite a hypocrite. But it's what I think is true, though, is that people not being willing to support their partners during the hard times will always lead to divorce. Yeah, there's no other road. Either that or just an extreme level of unhappiness, which is just as bad, if not worse. In fact, I think that's totally a worse scenario. And I think that it all comes down to the fact that if you see your partner's passion, and instead of supporting it, you crush it because you don't think you don't want them to do this thing. It's totally of a risk. You're not willing to. Again, we can go back to that word. You're not willing to let the relationship or the family become vulnerable for a moment for better cause. That's something that's going to lead to divorce. But I do think that probably a good chunk, let's say 25% of divorce, maybe even higher than that, maybe 30, 40, maybe 60%, could be avoided if they actually decided to face the issues as a team and support each other when you need to. With the good things and bad things. Like when Darby, my wife, was starting his new business and doing what she was doing and succeeding and pushing, I could have made a lot of different decisions that wouldn't have supported that. And I don't know if we would be as strong today as we are. Now, on the flip side, when I decided that I wanted to go back and exercise some of my passions, there wasn't a hesitation. There wasn't a hiccup. There was nothing. It was nothing but pure support. So in the good times and the bad, and when things get tough, and you support each other, again, you find out that you actually get way stronger as a couple than you ever would have with any other scenario, But the hard times almost make it even better than the good times.
Yeah,
if you agree. Still have fun and laugh during the worst of times, your good times are going to be really good.
That's true. Very true.
That's
very true.
But yeah, I think, to again, talk about specifically men's mental health, there's something about having people that care enough to call you and not say, "Are you okay?" but just call you.
Yeah.
That's a big thing, And
I agree.
I go back to it again, not to continue to say how good of a friend you are, but I will say it. When I went through a bunch of stuff years ago that I don't think anybody really knew that I was going through anything because I tend to hold on to it in a certain way. But you called me every single day. Every day, and we would just chat. We didn't talk about any of my shit that was going on. We just talked. Sure. That little bit, that support, that willingness to have a conversation every day, because you probably knew that I was maybe going through some stuff, and I probably needed to have a conversation with somebody. It wasn't about my vulnerability or any of that sort of stuff. It was just a chat. And it's like, I feel like guys, for some reason, because we're all taught to just hold everything in.
It's true.
We don't do it, Yeah. We just don't do it. So I think whether you're going through some mental health issues and you need to talk to somebody, go and do it. Or if you feel like a friend of yours is going through some stuff, you don't have to be a psychologist, man. You don't have to be a therapist.
It's so true.
Just call them. Ask
men need to group up.
Yeah. What do you think?
You need to tribe up. You need to tribe up.
Yeah.
You got to tribe up, boys.
Talk about the hockey game. You don't have to talk about anything, but call every day.
Totally.
Do it every day.
Yeah, I agree.
Do it every 3 days. Don't do it every 10 days. Call every day.
Yeah.
They'll appreciate it. You know what I mean? So, because we gotta fix that, man.
One of my dear friends I grew up with in back east, brother just killed himself. Yeah. And he killed himself in a very bizarre way. Mm-hmm. And the crazy part about it was, like, you knew that this guy suffered with mass depression. He was sick of taking the meds, and he basically took his own life, Mm-hmm. And we were just talking about it the other day, me and my friend that I grew up with, and he was saying how sad it was. It was so sad.
Yeah.
But he also said that was something that they figured out would happen one day. And you imagine that we're figuring out what's going to happen 5 years from now because of a guy's demeanor and of depression and anxieties and all these things that they're going through. but we're not finding a way to have these group sessions with men everywhere. They should be happening in coffee shops. They should be happening on golf courses. They should be happening on I don't care, barber shops. They should be happening everywhere where men are having these groups to talk about certain things. You know how many guys I know that are super successful that their own children right now are not talking to them? And how crushing, like, just think about that for 1 second, TJ. Your kids don't want to talk to you.
Well, you know what? Like, there's an interesting topic. I dealt with that today.
Correct, but that's why I'm bringing it up. But you imagine that you have the resentment and the unfinished business with parents, that kids now are not even talking to their parents. And if that doesn't make a man feel less than zero,
I don't know what would. Yeah, you know what?
I agree. I agree.
It is interesting because that's part of what gives guys a bad rap. Is that like, you know, again, great example. You grinded and busted your ass, whatever, you know, adjective you want to use for working hard and making sure you provide for your family. But you still see your kids. You still love your kids. Your kids love you. Do you have little squabbles here and there? Yeah, sure. Everybody does. Sure. But you're there for your kids. You'll never, ever allow there to be some mass amount of time that goes by without talking to them because you actually care, right?
Sure.
And if you care and you're a dad, there is no excuse for not showing your kids that. Zero excuse. I don't care what mental health problem you have. I don't care. And the thing is, you as a parent have all of the power when it comes to the kind of relationship that you have with your child.
Right.
And you can read a lot of psychological works. You can go through it, and you know, there's a million psychologists that have podcasts these days. Listen to some of them. They'll all tell you the same thing. Your children will be the first and perhaps only person in your life that are dying to love you and have you love them back without any conditions.
That's so true.
That's all they want.
It's so true.
Everybody wants
TJ.
a good relationship with their dad. Everybody. Even if their dad sucks.
It's unheard of. Yeah, it's unheard of they don't. Yeah, it's true.
Imagine you meet this girl or guy, whatever. You meet this person and for some reason they just want to love the shit out of you. They just want you to be there. And you go, you know, whatever. And that's crazy because they're also you made them. So you put them on the planet. And you can't even give them that tiny bit of effort that they want. If that's what you're doing as a dad, all of that talk about working hard, and it's because I was doing this and it's because I was doing that. Yeah. No excuse, bro. No excuse.
Yeah.
Talk to your kids. You might not be able to be there for a recital or for a baseball game or a basketball game or whatever, soccer game. But you can just be there. You can call them. You can say, hey, how are you? Even if they're little pricks. That might be the case.
How about it's never too late either? So this is what the people don't understand. It's like it's never too late. It's just
never
like
too late to show up.
No, it's
and if
not.
your kids say they don't want it, try again.
Yeah,
try again. And try
let
again.
let them vent. Let them vent on you a little bit.
That's right.
Let them get their peace of mind.
If you're a strong guy, I work hard. Why can't you let your kids do it? Why can't you take it?
Correct.
And that's the thing. That's what I think is there's like the double-edged sword of being a man, of being strong and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
You can't claim to be that and then not be able to deal with the hard stuff. So if your kids are acting out against you, if they don't want to be around you and you just accept it and walk away, that's the opposite of strength. In the biggest way.
I agree.
You know, so it's, we're talking about this. This is what's going on with my dad right now. I got frustrated. I sent the message. This isn't what I don't want a relationship like this. Now, I'll tell you, as somebody that's in this situation, not speaking to their parents, if he called me today, tomorrow, the next day, I'd always pick up my phone. I'd always be curious what he had to say. And I'd give him, I always would welcome a relationship. I've got kids. That means that they have a grandfather that's not really interested in their life. That bothers me, right? But I would always be open to it. So like you said, it's never, ever too late, no matter what, because your kids just want you to be there.
What about this one, TJ? I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm just sorry for doing this and that. And I don't know what's wrong with me. Like sincere apologies to the core of your soul to tell people that you messed up. You messed up. But moving forward, I'm going to fix that.
Yeah.
I'm going to fix that. Who are we as humans to truly judge people and tell them, okay, this is, you're done, you're finished.
Yeah, no.
Like, come on, man. What I'm trying to say, it's never too late, men out there. So men that are watching this show, and of course you're watching it for sports every week, and we'll get back to that next week, everybody.
Yeah.
Men's mental health wise, though, I want you to know that if your children are not talking to you and they're not responding to you, I want you to do everything in your power to stalk them. Okay.
Yeah.
I want you to call them. I want you to profusely apologize for something stupid you did. I want you to go out of your way to track them down and to make it rectify it. And you will, I guarantee you, when it's rectified, the power that you will receive from that will be crazy.
Yeah.
So please, men, okay? This is the only time I'm going to say, and I never use this term, man up. You need to man up for this, not man up in life, but you need to man up with your family. You need to, there's only one way to fix this. And I learned this from my wife. I didn't learn this from myself. My wife was always the advocate of keeping the family tight, making sure if there was a rift between anybody, that she was always the referee to fix it. And she was very fair every time. So what I'm trying to tell you is that when you have that support system, it's fantastic. But if you don't have the support system, you got to do it on your own, guys. You got to get out there and you got to fix it, because I'm telling you, you got one life, one family, and you got to fix it.
Yeah, you have to be involved. And I think that's it. Like you said, it's you don't get any more shots at this. And
that's true, eh?
That's
just the regret of regrets.
It is. And if you just let it go, you'll never stop regretting it. It'll always bother you. And it's not that hard. Relationships are difficult, right? Relationships with your kids as well. As they get older and they start getting their own personalities and ideas, they might really piss you off, but they're your children. And you'll always be upset if you don't have them in your life. So it's pretty simple. Just show up. Just let them, if they have to vent 100 times when you show up. I agree. Let them vent. Who cares? If you have a broken relationship with the child, do whatever it is you can in your power to fix that. And just being a presence is generally all you need to do, without rebuttaling and saying, but you did this.
Yeah. That's the word that you got to get out of your, that's one word you got to get out of your dictionary when you're dealing with your children, is the word but.
Yeah.
Don't say it.
But nothing.
But
it doesn't matter, bro. But it's something you said to your kid when they didn't want to go to their room, and they go, but. You go, no, but nothing. Go to your room, right? Now you've got to go to your room. That's the way it is. So deal with it. Because again, if your relationship is broken with your kids, I would say it's a 98% chance that you are the reason for that. And I'm not saying that they didn't do things badly. Yeah. I'm not saying that there wasn't anything hurtful said or done toward you. But again, every child wishes they had a great relationship with their father and mother. Things can get so bad that it becomes they now wish to not have one. But you can fix that too. It's not ever too late. It's not worth it. And that will drive you absolutely mental for your whole life. And a lot of times that is the cause of people feeling
the root. It's the root. Yeah. There's a root involved where that takes place.
Yeah.
And when you start to find out all these stupid things that you've not taken care of in your life, you're going to end up at 57 years old or 35, 36, 37 years old. And you're going to sit there and go, what's wrong with me, man? Mm-hmm. Like, what is wrong with me? Because you didn't address this stuff. And it's not going away. It's not going away until you do address it. And listen, I'm the one that's going to tell you this today. Go see somebody. Okay. Yeah, and I'm not even joking. I've never talked before openly to say this, but I really mean it. You really need to go see someone. It's never too late to see people. I've been blessed to have my wife as my part-time psychiatrist. Mm-hmm. So that's been, and she's fantastic. Mm-hmm. But I've told you too, that there's certain things in my life that I need to go address with someone. Yeah. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I need to sit down with someone that's not my wife. Yeah. And literally that's something that men have to just go, okay, this is the vulnerability part. This is the part where you got to walk into a room of someone you have no clue who they are, but that's their job. Yeah. And you go let them know that there's 2 or 3 things in your life that you just can't get out of your brain. You got to get it out. You got to figure some tool to get it out of your brain.
Well, you know what? The thing is, it's pretty simple, right? And I mean, this is not groundbreaking at all. This is something people have been saying for ages. If you have things that are bothering you, you got to imagine it like anything else. You're carrying a backpack, right? The backpack's full of all the shit that you've got.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, some of us have more shit than others. And, sometimes, and that's not fair either. By the way, the world has never promised to be fair. That's not the way it works.
Yeah.
Nobody is owed fairness. That's just,
Correct.
We all get born where we're born. We have relationships with our parents or not. We have bad things, good things, whatever. That doesn't mean anything. You've got whatever you've got, and you've got only that life. So forget about anybody else and how unfair it is. You got to fix you. You're the only one that matters in your life. That's the way it is. So if you've got this backpack and you got all this stuff, if you never say it to anybody, you might say it to yourself in your head. You're only adding more stuff to your backpack. That's it. If you don't get out there and say, this is what's happening, you'll never get it off your back. And it's very basic psychology. Talk about it, it becomes lighter. It's just the way it is. You've got it out there. You've spoken about it. It's no longer hindering you. It's not your enemy anymore. It's now something that you can work on to get better. And if you don't do it with somebody, don't dump it on your kids. That's for sure.
Yeah,
but
that's the worst.
That's one of the things that kills kids' relationships a lot of the time is that parents start to use them as emotional support because they love them.
Yeah, that's a big mistake.
Bad idea. And look, people make mistakes. It's not a problem if you have. I'm just saying it's not a good idea.
Totally.
Go to a professional because, and I don't say this to anybody either. I'm not a kind of person to even talk about mental health all that much. But if you have something you got to deal with it. Deal with it. Don't let it get worse. Don't. It's just like your body. If you were 400 pounds overweight, everybody would know you got some shit to work on. Everybody. Yeah. And so would you. And it would be pretty easy to understand what was causing you all the problems. The problem with mental health is that it's invisible. The problem with mental health is that there's no measure for success. You can't jump on a scale and say, hey, I've lost 20 sanity points today. It doesn't work that way.
That's true.
You've got to do it behind closed doors. You're not going to get praised by the public, but I'm telling you, it's the one thing that will make your life so much better, because tomorrow is always possible to be better than today. And unfortunately, it's possible for it to be worse as well. So if you don't recognize that, those bad days compound and it gets heavier and heavier. And then the more help you need, the harder it is for you to find it. So you just get it out there. It's not necessary for you to get worse. You can always get better, but tough. It's a tough world out there for you guys. Nobody's going to care about you. That's just the way it is.
But we do.
I sure do.
Listen, guys, we brought you this one episode about men's mental health on purpose, and TJ and I were struggling because we seen that no one is talking about it, and it's the entire month of June in Canada is Men's Mental Health Month. And we just thought it was super important to bring it to you from our sponsors and advertisers, Crystal Glass, your clear choice for all your glass needs. Call 310 Glass or go to crystalglass.ca today. And we appreciate everything they do for us, but at the same time, as we're just trying to let people know that we do care. Mm-hmm. And we are a sports show that a lot of our guests on many occasions have brought up mental illness and what they've gone through after sports and what they've gone through and all kinds of things like that. So it was important today to do this episode because we don't want you to think we're not going to forget about you.
You're not alone.
You're definitely not alone.
We've all got some things to work through. No matter how great somebody's life looks, you look at anybody and you think, oh, they've got it going on. They're good. TJ and Mark, what do they know about mental health? All that sort of stuff. We all have things that bother us, and it's only you that can fix them. And that's the hard part. So get out there and give it a shot, because you're not alone. We care about you. A lot of people do. And we can't allow this number that's plaguing men all over the world to get any worse. We got to get it better. We got to respect each other. We got to support each other. We need to be there, whether it's for yourself, whether it's for people around you. We need to turn it around, because, guys don't deserve to feel like they're not needed. You are needed, and that's never going to change. So you can always get better. Tomorrow can be better. It's just the way it is, So yeah, I'm glad we talked about it, because it's one of those things that's so necessary, and we'll probably bring up a little bit every episode in the rest of June, because it's necessary.
I totally agree. And tune in, everybody, on Tuesday nights, and we will be back this next Tuesday with a very special guest, and we'll let you know who it is coming up soon. And you check us out on all our social media platforms, on Twitter, Instagram, everywhere. TikTok.
Everywhere. Facebook,
Everywhere.
TikTok, all the places.
Facebook.
Yeah.
That's
At Mark Pavelich. Don't make a mistake. It's at Mark Pavelich. Never forget it. That's on all social media platforms. Of course, myself at TJ Harstine. Don't mistake that either. At TJ Harstine. Very easy to remember. All social media platforms. And of course, at the Busted Lip Podcast on all social media platforms.
That's right.
Can't wait to see you again. This was fun. Back on the saddle. Kids and all. Cheers.
I done tussle with a whale. I done handcuff lightning, throw thunder in jail. That's bad. I know you got him picked, but the man's in trouble. I'm gonna show you how great I am.
I'm the most brutal and vicious and most ruthless champion there's ever been. There's no one can stop me.
I don't want that person to come out, because if he comes out, hell is coming with him.
Run with the man.